That's it.
Oh, and here we are. Okay, folks, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever time or time zone you are in. Welcome to this week's edition of the Mauls, Balls and All podcast, brought to you by the IRB group here. This goes out live on Facebook and also on YouTube. So joining us this evening amongst our regular contributors are Peter Burke, our own very own version of George Hook, and we have our Irishman abroad, stuck in the backside of Scotland, Mike Reedy. Good evening, Mike.
Good evening.
Joining us this evening as our special guest is none other than Mark McHugh. Mark is a former player with Leinster, Connacht, Montpellier, Nice, and I suppose most importantly, from my own point of view, Boyne, and also played with St. Mary's. Good evening, Mark, and how are you?
I'm good, Peter. Yeah, good to be here. And thanks for that nice introduction.
How are you, Mark?
I didn't miss anything on the club space there. You're also the head coach with St. Mary's, I believe, at the moment. Is that right?
Yeah, back at a club that I suppose is very close to my heart, having played there for 6 years back in from 99 to 2006. I suppose got a call about maybe this time last year to would I consider going along and giving them I suppose joining the coaching staff at that time with Sean Cronin as head coach, and look, I agreed, and Sean in that time since then, I suppose just shortly before Christmas, had stepped away to take up an exciting new coaching role for him within the Munster branch and in elite player pathways there in Munster. So they've asked me to kind of take over as head coach, which I've obviously gratefully accepted, and really enjoying it. Super club, good bunch of guys, great players, and we're going okay at the minute, which is nice.
Mark, I think Mark, we have a mutual friend in Stephen Hennessy.
Oh, we do, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Steve would have been one of the reasons why I initially joined St. Mary's back in 1999, a long time ago, 5 years ago or something like that. Yeah, 25 years ago. Yeah.
I know Steve well. He's a good guy. He's one of the better ones.
He absolutely is. No, he's a super guy, good, great rugby man, and a great Mary's guy, and doing good work in the school actually now these days. As looking after the rugby program there. So no, really good guy.
I was at his wedding.
You're a better friend to him than I am. Then I obviously my invite got lost in the post, obviously.
Maybe. Yeah, well, there you go. Sorry, Pete. Go on.
Yeah, no, I suppose, look, what generally speaking, what we're going to do tonight is we'll do a recap on last week's Champions Cup fixtures, and then we'll just basically have a chat about you, Mark, and you know, your I suppose distinguished and varied playing career, and you know, various different kind of interesting bits. Kind of checkpoints along the way. I suppose the first match we'll kind of start off with, and it's a good one, I think, really, was the Connacht versus Bristol Bears. Connacht Connacht scoring 27 points to Bristol Bears managing just the 10 points. Mark, obviously, as a guest, I'm going to come to you first of all. Did you see the match? What did you think of it?
Yeah, no, I did. I watched it. I didn't watch the whole lot from start to finish, but I did watch a good deal of it, and yeah, Connacht were really impressive. It was an interesting one, given they had, I suppose, struggled in the Champions Cup up to that point, and I suppose we're really looking for a good performance, and they certainly got it. Now look, they were helped obviously by the Bristol red card after I think 10, 11, 12 minutes. So playing at that level with 14 men for the guts of 70 minutes is going to be really challenging. And over in Galway on a January evening, Connacht just, I thought, played very well, managed the game really well, got ahead on the scoreboard, kept that scoreboard pressure going, and I really thought they were really good value for their win. And I suppose the only thing for them would be a bit of disappointment and regret that maybe they didn't perform like that in the previous couple of games. Because obviously now they dropped down to the Challenge Cup and have an interesting fixture in the south of France against Pau, I think, at the beginning of April. But they would much prefer to be playing a last 16, obviously Champions Cup game. But yeah, not to be.
Very good. Obviously you played for Connacht in the past. And we've seen that Pete Wilkins has come on board as he stepped up out of Andy Friend's shadow as head coach. Have you noticed a discernible change in the style? If there's, what exactly have you kind of noticed as regards what one or two little bits that Wilkins has brought to the game that I suppose maybe Friend has done differently, or?
Well, I certainly noticed a difference in how they play the game now to how they played when I played back 20 years ago. I would be lying if I said I could notice a discernible difference. I think what I from what the limited amount of rugby that I watch these days, what I see is that Wilkins is trying to build on some really, really good, I suppose, groundwork that Friend put in. Obviously, the I suppose the zenith of the Patlan time back in, was it 16 when they won the top or whatever with the URC as it was then, or the Celtic League, whatever it was. They had a little bit of a dip after that. I think Friend did some really, really good work and probably didn't maybe get some of the I suppose plaudits or success that maybe he deserved. But I certainly think Wilkins is building on that. He's a really, really good coach. I've done some of my coaching courses and he's been on them delivering some of the modules, and he comes across as a really, really good guy, really knowledgeable, good rugby man, really good detail, really good delivery, which I think is really important as a coach. And yeah, I think, as I say, they've been a little bit maybe unlucky and haven't performed quite as well as they would have hoped. Certainly in the Champions Cup to date. But yeah, they're playing a really good brand, and as I say, Friday night I thought they played some really, really good stuff, and they're not afraid to go from anywhere, which is fun and enjoyable to play, and equally it's really good to watch from a kind of a neutral point of view, or an armchair point of view.
Okay, just before we move on to the rest of the guys there, I just wanted to ask you, the red card for Josh Caulfield that was overturned. Not a few of us were having when you see Finlay Beelam's face, for Christ's sake, it was pretty significant, and the red card was the right decision, I felt at the time, but it's been overturned.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts?
Watching it, equally, I thought it was a red card. I think that the way the game is gone nowadays, I think players have a duty of care and responsibility when they're tiptoeing around rooks or whatever it might be. Beelam was in an incredibly vulnerable position. He'd made a tackle. He was rolling out of the way. He wasn't in the way in any way, shape, or form, in my view. Caulfield was just, I thought, really. I don't believe it was deliberate. I don't think it was. I know this. I've read a little bit about it. I know a few people. Dave Corkery, ex-Munster and Ireland back row forward. I know he's fairly outspoken on this kind of stuff, and he feels that it was deliberate. He says you know where you're putting your feet, and I don't fully disagree with him, but equally I don't totally agree with him. I'll sit on the fence a wee bit on it. I think it was just a little bit clumsy, but yes, I do think it was negative. I don't think you can afford to be clumsy in today's day, in today's game. I think you need to know where you're putting your feet, and if you put them on somebody's head, you are, not only are you running the risk of a red card, but in my view, a red card is the right decision.
Okay. I just noticed we've just managed to acquire the presence of Danny Brosnan.
Yay, Danny!
Welcome back.
Wait, you say we lose him now in a minute.
Yeah, exactly.
I
have no idea what he just said. Anyway, Peter Burke, did you see the Connacht game?
I did indeed. And it was possibly the I hate to say it because I know James Grannon is probably watching this. It was probably one of the best performances I've seen Connacht play. Bristol Bears were absolutely fucking shite. They could put nothing together. They were the handy mistakes, I think, were in the double figures. they just couldn't do fucking anything. 27-10, I don't think the scoreline represented the dominance that Connacht had in that game. And one thing about the coaching that you're touching on there, Mark and Pete, about Pete Wilkins, I would also say that Scott Fardy's defensive coaching is coming into the fore, because they had, like, Connacht's defense really, I thought there was a stark difference in that game against the Bears, and I think that's Scott Fardy's touch on that. Obviously, his touch on that. I thought Connacht played very well. I thought they deserved to win by more than the 17 points that they won by. I thought they completely dominated Bristol Bears. It's the age-old cliche. You can only play what 15 is in front of you. As I said, Bristol were absolutely fucking rubbish, and Connacht just dominated them, and they a well-deserved win by Connacht. And it's a pity they're dropping out for next season. But well done, Connacht. Well done.
It's interesting you say that about their defense and Scott Fardy. I was looking at a few stats during the week, and Connacht are, what are they? I think they're 9th in the URC table. Their defense is the 13th best, so the third was it third? Is that right? Third worst in the whole URC. They're conceding close to 20 points a game, which is not going to win a lot of games. You know, if you have to score 20 plus points in a game, you're going to struggle. But I agree. I thought their D on Friday evening was far better than their URC form would suggest.
Yeah. I totally agree, Mark. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and of course we had that Andrew Smith try that was a crime to be disallowed. But anyway, look.
Oh, is that the Leinster man, Pete, you're talking about, or no?
Yes. Yeah, the ex Leinster man. Yeah, good man, Peter. You had to get it in there, didn't you?
There you go. Go
on. Anyway, Mike Reedy, did you see the game? What did you think?
I saw the game. Yeah, I was really. I mean, I'll be honest. I picked Connacht to win the game last week, but and I wasn't surprised. I think Bristol are fucking. I really don't rate them at all, to be honest with you. And, Connacht 100% deserved to win that game. Every aspect of it, they dominated completely. Even without being a man up in the game, I think they were on top anyway. And I mean, as far as the red card incident is concerned, I think it's an absolute disgrace what the authorities have done. They're bringing the game into disrepute by doing that. They're really if they're not prepared to back the decision made by the officials in a game, we're going to end up with no officials. It's as simple as that. It's pathetic. There was what's to be gained from rescinding that red card? I mean, what message are you sending out that we have no consideration for player welfare whatsoever? Because he's, as far as I'm concerned, he fucking stamped in his head. He looked down. I watched it again tonight, by the way. He actually looked down and he knew where he was stamping. That's a stamp, and that's a red card any day of the week. That was a red card fucking 20 years ago. Never mind now.
Pete, sorry, Mike. Pete, sorry, I never answered your question there about the red card. Yes, I agree with what Mike said. I kind of agree with what Mark said. It was a blatant red card, and for the disciplinary committee to overturn that, it's a smack in the face to the ref, the TMO, the linesman.
Yeah.
I thought that was an absolute disgrace. Echoing what Mike said and kind of agreeing with what Mark said.
Yeah, and Nigel Owens had actually responded as well, basically saying he's glad he's retired and so on. Yeah. Danny, your thoughts, please, on the Connacht game.
Here we go.
The only thing I saw, I didn't see the actual game itself or any highlights. The only thing I saw was the red card involving Finlay Beatham, and that was the easiest red card you'll see any day of the second week. And in fact, he didn't get a suspension out of that. It's setting things up in such a way that your players might try to get away with that a little bit more, maybe push the boundaries a bit more to feel they can get red carded and maybe get away with it, but on that fair play Connacht to win that game.
All they actually had to do was uphold the red card decision and say it's coming in at the low end, like we feel it was it possibly could be accidental. However, you have a duty of care but they could have upheld the red card decision and give it as even time served by.
They should have. They should have.
But they didn't. You cannot rescind something like that. By the way, it's they done the same during the World Cup. They did. It's absolutely pathetic.
Yeah, we've a bit to go as regards. I think the officials have to. They're definitely kind of, I suppose, watching their backs to see if they're not going to get stabbed in the back by the disciplinary committee, the site committee thereafter. Moving on then to the next game, Harlequins versus Ulster. Harlequins at home in the Stoop, putting 47 up against Ulster, who just managed the 19. Mark, I'm going to come to you on this. Did you manage to see the game?
I didn't see it live, but I've seen some highlights of it, or some low lights from an Ulster point of view. They were appalling. They were absolutely awful, and I don't know. There's something not right about what's going on up there in terms of some of their performances. They've obviously had a really good performance against Leinster a number of weeks ago, but the performances in Europe have been very, very poor. Obviously, I appreciate Toulouse are very good, and losing to a Toulouse team is not to be sneezed at, but getting smacked by them by, conceding 48 points last week, another 41, was it to Harlequins or whatever it was, or 47, whatever it was. I thought they were really, really poor. Some of the errors for some of the tries were I say schoolboy errors, but that'd be an insult to schoolboys if you suggested that they were errors that they would make. They were so poor. And I don't know. I mean, they've got and Harlequins, as I say, Harlequins did not have to work for any of those scores. They went 21-7 at halftime. I mean, the 3 tries they got were, just shocking stuff. Jacob Stockdale, Robert Balakoon, just really, really poor stuff. Something's, I don't know, something's not right about it. About what's going on out there, because they have some really, really good players. Billy Burns obviously is back to playing some good stuff at 10. McCluskey at 12, a super player. Look, Stockdale, he was always a decent finisher. I would have always had serious doubts about him from a defensive and an actual game point of view. I don't believe he understands the game of rugby as well as a professional rugby player in that position should do. He finds himself positionally out of position a lot of the time, especially in defensive situations. Balakoon, I'm not convinced by. I think, yes, he's a good athlete, he's a good runner, but equally similar to Stockdale, I'm not sure he understands the game of rugby as somebody at that level needs to. And they were so poor. That was the most disappointing aspect. I know, obviously, Munster getting turned over in Thomond doesn't happen too often, but Ulster's performance away, I just thought, for a team that had something to play for, really, really disappointing. And I know Dan McFarland will be, I would say, pulling his hair out, but he doesn't have any more to pull out. But he will be very, very frustrated, very upset at that kind of performance. It's not a performance that reflects him as a coach. It's not in his image, for certain.
Would you be of the opinion, Mark, then, maybe I'm reading you wrong there, but would you be the opinion perhaps that you feel that it's the players that's at the fault? We've been speaking about this for some time on here, on and off, with these constant poor performances, non-performances from Ulster, and we've kind of spoken about it, and we felt that, like a couple of weeks ago, he basically threw his team under the bus, and he basically said that, criticizing the standards aren't there, and it's like, well, surely that's, we've kind of said that there's been an issue with leadership, I suppose, to an extent, that there isn't kind of 3 or 4 players there who basically kind of take the dressing room and say, right, lads, we get out on the pitch, and we get out on training, and this is what we're doing. If we're not up to it, you're going to get your head taken off you by one of us as a leadership group. Do you feel that? Do you feel that the players are perhaps saying to Dan, "Listen, we've had enough of you. You're the problem," or do you feel that it is actually the players who are the problem?
Look, it's a good question. They've got enough strong leaders within that squad. Herring, Henderson, Willie Burns, McCluskey. Stockdale is long enough in the tooth now. So they've got enough guys with enough experience there that performances like Saturday, and bear in mind that that's not the first one. They've been given performances like that, throughout the season. You even think back to the end of last year. I mean, Connacht beating them in Ravenhill in a URC quarterfinal. That was a insipid performance by Ulster. They should, it's not a game they expected to lose, and maybe that's why they lost it, because they weren't, humble enough to believe that they could lose it. To your question, though, look, every coach has a shelf life in charge of, with a group and with a team. Has Dan reached the end of his? Look, I really don't know. I clearly, obviously, not there on a day-to-day basis, so I don't know what's going on there. What I do believe is that I don't think a coach should be throwing players under the bus, so to speak, to use your phrase. I think that stuff has to stay internal. You can say what you like to guys internally within the confines of a dressing room and the safety of a dressing room, but once you go external, voicing your displeasure or voicing your frustration at players and performances, I think that's a really, really thin line you're skating there. And if you step across, if you cross that line, you can't come back across. You can't unring the bell, so to speak. And so I don't know what it is that's going on up there. I don't know what it is. And maybe the players, maybe the senior players have had enough of Dan. I really don't know. But there's something needs to change. And whether that's the player, those senior players need to take it, take the overall group by the scruff of the neck, so to speak, and start laying down a little bit of the law and not accepting these poor standards that they're clearly exhibiting. And the reality is that I would imagine that this isn't just happening on a Saturday. This is happening on the training paddock on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday, on a Thursday, because whatever you do during the week reflects, goes onto the pitch on a Saturday. So 100%. The body language of the players, I thought, was actually really poor on Saturday against Harlequins, and that was one of the things that, as a coach, if I was sitting in the stand, I'd be really, really upset with. Body language just was so bad, and that to me, I stinks of a group of players that maybe have lost a bit of faith in their top level leadership.
Sure, Peter Burke, you're itching to come in there.
No, I was just going to read a comment there, going back to the red card, the Beelum red card. Someone says we can't be using awkward, clumsy as an excuse for dangerous play. Guys, a professional and should be more accurate. Equally, the injured player's livelihood is at risk, and the more red cards get turned over, the license to do this. If it's a mistake as the offender, you've only lost at most 80 minutes, whereas the injured player could lose everything. Okay, fair enough. Next one, just another one there, Pete. Smack in the face to Finlay, too, no pun intended, but all that pain and your man gets to walk. Terrible decision. Someone else, absolutely agree. I think that's what you, Mark, the point you were making there previous. It looks like Ulster haven't been on the practice field in weeks. Obviously not the case, but what are they spending their time on? I don't know. So there you go. There's the comments up to date now. Sorry, Pete.
Do you want to come in there, Mark?
The comment there about being awkward and clumsy, I use those terms, and I totally agree. It's not an excuse for dangerous play. Absolutely not at all. My point was that I think it was awkward and clumsy. Guys might disagree and say it was deliberate, fair enough. But there's no doubting it's a red card. There's no doubting that. I think the fact that it was overturned by EPCR or whatever the hell they're called, I think is an absolute shambles, is a disgrace, and I think it's a really, really dangerous precedent. I really do.
Yeah, totally agree, Mark. Totally agree.
Mike Reedy, your thoughts on Ulster versus Harlequins?
Oh God! We were almost last week when we didn't give Ulster any chance. I didn't. I personally didn't anyway, and none of us did. And a couple of people questioned it on the comments, and I mean, I don't think any of us want to have a go at Ulster every week. We don't want them, but until change the way they're playing and perform better on the pitch. There's very little. You can only tell the truth, and the truth is horrific, and it looks like you're getting worse week on week. I mean, that defending for the first try, Stockdale was fucking wherever he was. The guy ran 3/4 of the length of the pitch with ups, and Stockdale ran across the pitch slowly enough to start with, didn't get there. And then the other try that Michael Linus boy scored. Great finish, great try, but you have to fucking defend better than that. I mean, first of all, he brings the ball from his own half and then beats Billy Burns and fucking Balakoon with absolutely pathetic attempts. He kicks the ball overhead and Stockdale fucking flapping about trying to pick it up. And if I'll tell you one thing, if he's fucking good enough to be in an Irish, even a training squad, we're in fucking trouble as far as I'm concerned. He is absolutely nowhere near international standard of rugby player as far as I'm concerned. Now, he was very, very good in 2018, but that's it. And he has done nothing in an Ulster shirt. He scored a few tries that anybody would score, like, you know, and he should be scoring. But his defence is pathetic at best. And Balakoon, I did actually rate Balakoon, but I don't anymore. He's terrible as well. Oh, it's sad for Ulster fans, and I take no pleasure at all. I support all 4 provinces, and I take no pleasure at all in seeing Ulster play like that or not perform. I'm really impressed with Nick Timoney, by the way. Nick Timoney is. I hope he gets a go for Ireland in the Six Nations. I hope he gets a game.
In my own view, Mike, he's been Ulster's best player this season. But anyway, that's just my tuppence worth. But
even players like Henderson, you know, experienced players, they have got to stand up. We can blame McFarland, and McFarland did throw him under a bus. And once you've lost the dressing room, you've lost. He has to go now, because there's no way back. You can't retrieve that, because I mean, you can't unsay what you've already said, you know. So he's like, he'll probably see out the season. It's not usual in rugby to change coaches.
You're right, Mike. It's not usual. We're not soccer. Peter Burke, have you anything to add as you're taking a slug of your Heineken there on the match, that particular match?
Yeah, Ulster were fucking shite, basically. I think Dan McFarland should have gone a month ago. We had Reggie Corrigan on the show last week, and someone asked why all the negativity about Ulster. Well, there you go. That's why. You know, and this is, and Mike, I agree with you. Nick Timoney is a class, outstanding player. Billy Burns, not so much. This is the second time that Ulster have been knocked out of the Champions Cup before the Six Nations have started. The second time in their history. So it's a challenge cup for them next year. And to be honest with you, it's what they deserve. Now, people have a go. Ulster fans might have a go at me about this, but it's what they deserve, because they're like that fucking tap, that cooker tap you can get installed into your fucking bathroom. Fucking turn it on, it's roasting hot. Flick it another way, and it's fucking freezing. Right, that's Ulster for you. They're hot and cold. They can come down to the RDS and they can beat Leinster. Then they go and they put in that fucking shite performance that an AIL side wouldn't even do. An AIL side would have beaten Ulster on that.
That's the most extraordinary metaphor I've heard you use, Peter, yet for describing a team: a mixer tap.
There you go. Turn it on, switch it to hot, switch it to cold in the flick.
We've had Zulu and various other things you've come out with, Peter, and
in the space of a week, they do this, and I think Dan McFarland, I think, is to blame for this, because if you're not following a leader, if you're not playing for yourselves and a leader, who the fuck are you playing for? Because they didn't play for the fans. They really didn't, and they let themselves down, and they let everyone down. And the negativity about Ulster will continue. And I know, actually, it was Mark Hunter. He's a member of the group, and Mark is a great guy, and he's a passionate Ulster supporter. And he was asking the question, why all the negativity? Mark, your question has been answered, and that's why the negativity is about Ulster, because you just don't know. It's like another one for you, Pete. It's like Forrest Gump said, you just don't know what you're going to get. And that's it. That's it with Ulster. But that is it with Ulster. Yeah. You have no idea what team is going to come out onto that pitch. So there you go.
Unfortunately, we are where we are with Ulster, and I suppose the cards will fall as they will towards the end of the season. Moving on to slightly better and more positive stuff, we have Leinster were away to Leicester. Leinster coming out at the end of that game with a 27-10 win. Mark, again, I'm coming to you. Did you see the game? What's your thoughts and your ideas about how that game turned out, please?
I didn't actually see it again. I caught a few highlights of it. look, I think it's a game that Leinster would be expected to win. Leicester are not I suppose the force that they were back in the early 90s and early 2000s. But that's not to say that Welford Road is a tough place to go, difficult place to go and play. Really the crowd getting your back, and it's a tough place to go. So I don't think a 4-try bonus point win is to be sneezed at. I think it's a really good result. Going 10-0 down as well, Leicester obviously had their tails up, so to build their way back into the game and actually nil them for the next 70 minutes or whatever it was, 65 minutes is I suppose really good. Kudos to their defense, because I know that's come under a little bit of scrutiny recently. Obviously, Nienaber coming in and is looking to make some changes. In terms of, I suppose, how aggressive they are in their defence. We saw Billy Burns obviously unpick that for Ulster a few weeks back. There's going to be teething problems with it, but I thought from the bits I saw, Leinster were very good. Showed some really, I suppose, a lot of power up front. Big Joe McCarthy is playing some super stuff, and he really is. He's come on so much in the last, even just 12 months. He's I suppose, put himself right in the mix to start for Ireland now in the Six Nations. Himself, Ryan Baird playing a 6, another good game. Caelan Doris, who, look, I know he probably didn't have as good a World Cup as he would have liked, and maybe some people expected, but still an absolute world class player and just a class operator. James Ryan.
Mark, could I ask you a question? Would you start Joe McCarthy against France either with James Ryan or Tyke Byrne, or would you leave it as Ryan and Byrne and leave McCarthy on the bench, or would you start Joe?
If I'm picking the team right now, oh God, it's an interesting one. It's pretty difficult to leave him out, isn't it? Equally, look, Ryan is, James calls the line out, so I think 25 Hurling, doesn't he? So again, you probably are not leaving him out. Tyke Byrne, again, class line-out operator, but gives you so much around the park in terms of his jackling and his defensive stuff. But Joe
King.
Now the only thing about McCarthy is that he's still really raw, and if you look at, he gets a little bit of. He gets a bit overexcited sometimes, I find, especially in defense, and he's just going around trying to thump people rather than maybe get into stay within a defensive system and basically stay patient, let somebody else make their tackle and wait, and you might be able to make the next one. I don't know if you saw Leicester's try at the weekend. Both himself and Ryan Baird got overly eager, went towards a ruck where they shouldn't have, and actually left the blind side completely free for 3 Leicester players to jog down a 5-meter channel. So I'm not sure what Farrell will do. I think if it was me and I'm picking a team, I'm probably going to go with my tried and trusted James Ryan and Tyke Byrne in the second row, and you've got McCarthy to come on at 45-50 minutes to absolutely make a nuisance of himself for the last 30 minutes.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, that sounds like a fair comment. All right. I think just following on from what you're saying about Nienaber, my own view on what Nienaber has brought to Leinster is he's turned their defence into an aggressive defence rather than, where they're going after the ball more aggressively, rather than when Stewart was there. It was kind of like we line them up across in a blue wall across the pitch, and we basically play it more patient, kind of, I suppose, a little bit more passive, I suppose, perhaps in defence, and we just basically bide our time. When we pick our rooks, we go after to the first turnovers. But look, that's just my tuppence worth. Peter, the game, you saw it, I take it, obviously.
I did. Listen, what Mark said, it was a good game. Welford Road is not an easy place to go. Did I expect anything other than a Leinster win? Not really. I thought it would have been closer, to be honest with you. It was a welcome back from James Lowe, man of the match. I thought he had a great game, and that's good to see for the Six Nations coming up, obviously. I don't like. There's nothing more to add. I mean, they were clinical, but I think, again, to reference what Reggie Corrigan said last week, Leinster are getting there. They have to work for their tries, but they're not there yet. Like Leinster haven't clicked. They haven't reached that that level of slickness, that ball to hand, that attack, that defense that we're used to seeing from Leinster. And I think that will come. It will come. Obviously, it will come. But I just think that they're getting there. And I mean, the win against Leicester, I think I did expect it, but I didn't think it was going to be a 17-point win. But yeah, absolutely loved it. I thought it was great, and I thought fair play to James Lowe coming back and getting man of the match. And there you go.
Danny Brazen, seeing as the Wi-Fi is working again, have you anything to add? Did you see that game?
No, I didn't say that. I didn't even have a chance to see highlights of it yet. It's just been manic and stuff. So,
Danny, are you just out of fucking bed?
That's just brilliant, Danny. Why are you here?
Fucking fantastic. Here, Pete, why was it a pause? Just a couple of viewers' questions.
Yeah.
Going back to Ulster. Ulster's issue is obviously not a lack of talent in players or coaching staff. Sometimes combinations doesn't work, and unfortunately, it is easier to change the coach than have the team. A change might bring a breath of fresh air. That's very true. Would it be terrible to think that the players are playing under protest and are forcing the hand of Ulster Rugby to make a change? I don't know about that. Unlikely for professionals to do that when your career is on the line. Okay, and Louis, where's Louis saying? Louis, maybe it's the only way for them to be heard and change, and changes to be made. I don't know. Yeah, whatever. There you are.
Mike Reedy, the Leinster game. Did you see it?
I did. I saw it. Yeah. I was impressed with Leinster, I have to say. Panned out more or less as I expected, to be honest with you. But echo what Mark said. Joe McCarthy he's an absolute machine. I do agree in view of what you said there, Mark. You know that maybe he's still a little bit raw to be throwing him into, especially a game against France. It's going to be a very physical encounter, which might suit him, but he has to rein that in sometimes as well, because you don't want to end up with 14 on the pitch for stupidity. And like, you know, he's still young enough, and he's learning his trade. He's a fantastic player, though. That boy has it all. And I was disappointed for Harry Byrne. I thought he was having his best game for Leinster in a long time when he had to go off. And young Prendergast is going to be, you know, he's learning game by game as well. And James Lowe had a good outing. It was overall a very professional performance, and for Leinster to go right to the end, like, and get that bonus point try literally in the 90th or 84th minute, and I thought it was impressive. You know, Leinster will be okay. You know, they're getting better game on game, and they'll be there at the end.
Yeah, I'd agree with what you're saying there, Mike, about Leinster at the death. Like, it wasn't an 80th minute, like, but if there was 85 minutes on the clock, they'd still probably be playing. Like, it's real for me personally. I think that's real kind of statement of intent stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, when you're in the death throes of the game and you're still pounding away, looking to get the points.
And like the complete difference to what Ulster are producing. Leinster didn't need a bonus point win, but by fuck they got it. They went. They did not give up. They didn't stop. They could have kicked the ball out and won the game and gone home and gone into the next round and had a home draw and whatever. Yeah. But they wanted to fucking, you know, that it's professional. It's finishing the game properly, and it's complete polar opposites the way they're playing just now.
Yeah.
And but no, Leinster are very, very good.
Yeah, absolutely agree with an awful lot of what's been said there. Moving on anyway to the final game. Not the result I think a lot of people expected down from Munster. Not the performance that was expected, nor the result. And I see Danny with the head in the hand there. That's definitely a metaphor for exactly most of the way Munster fans were feeling at 8 o'clock last Saturday evening. Munster 23, Northampton 26. Did you see much of that game, Mark? Or?
I actually didn't. That's the one I haven't seen any of, but I obviously have read a little bit about it. I've obviously saw the scoreline, saw that I mean, Munster had the game sewn up. What were they, 20 points to 10 up, a man up. I made reference, earlier on about the Connacht game that it's tough to play for 70 minutes with 14 men like Bristol did, but I mean Northampton played for, I don't know, what was it, 60 minutes or whatever it was with 14 and dare I say played better with the 14. Yeah, Munster will be really disappointed. Graham Renshaw will be really, really disappointed that they didn't have the nous and the capability to close that game out. Not only to close it out, but they probably should have got on to win it, with a bonus point. And that'll stick in his craw. He'll be disappointed about that, as will the Munster players. And they're a proud bunch. They don't often lose down at Thomond Park. And it will be interesting to see. I appreciate. Look, it's a bit of a gap before they go into that last 16 encounter, but it'll be interesting to see what kind of Munster team turn up for that last 16 encounter at Franklin's Gardens when they go back to Northampton. I think, dare I say, it might be a different look and a different feel about that game. Now, look, admittedly, Northampton are playing well. They played really well on Saturday evening. They're top of the Premiership, I think, aren't they, as well? So, they're a tough nut to crack. They're a good team. But yeah, Munster will be really disappointed. That's to lose a game at Thomond Park in those kind of circumstances. I think it's not something that I would have seen coming.
A few of the Ulster, some of the Munster fans felt that they lacked a bit of power and a bit of bulk in their pack. Like it's well known they're missing RG and they're missing John Klein. An awful lot of World Cup winning nous and power there. Do you feel that perhaps the lack of the type of game that they play in the Gallagher Premiership, I suppose, perhaps maybe stood to Northampton in their winning of the game, possibly overpowering and bullying Munster a little bit? Yeah,
look, I think rugby's a relatively simple game that hasn't changed a huge amount in the 100 and however many years it's been going. The forwards decide who win games, and the backs can decide by how much. And if you don't have a decent amount of power up front, you're always going to struggle. They don't have Snyman, they don't have Klein, they won't have either of them now, I don't think, for the rest of the season. So they're going to have to figure it out. But certainly the style of rugby in the Premiership is certainly different to, I suppose, URC, different to European Cup as well, to a degree. And that power game is something that Northampton are used to. They were in a groove. They know what they're doing. Munster just couldn't get out of that stranglehold once they found themselves in that headlock, so to speak. They didn't have the power to get out of it, and that's the concerning thing for Munster.
Moving on to a couple of Munster men. Danny Brosnan. Hello.
Oh, fuck.
Jesus Christ!
Yeah, I know. I hear.
It's like a time difference talking to Danny in Kerry.
Fuck's sake! Come on, Brosnan, the fuck with you.
No. I'm gonna stay quiet in for the rest of the night. Fine. No, we fucked up that one. That we're a man up for the entire fucking second half. How in the name of fuck you're at home going into that second half is what 10 or 13 point advantage, and you didn't fucking finish them off by 68 minutes? It's fucking beyond me. To be honest with you, we fucked up enough. I think Northampton were better. We deserve to lose that match. I'm not going to even fucking argue with that one. I won't even rent it anymore after that. Fuck that hell.
Right, Mike, have you anything else to add?
I think the difference between the two teams was Finn Smith. For me, he actually stole the show. He was the man of the match. I don't even think he got man of the match. I think they gave it to what's called
Courtney Laws got it.
Courtney Laws had a good game, but Finn Smith scored a drop goal from 40 meters, and he scored a fucking penalty from their own half. Like, fucking blasted it over. And I thought he had an outstanding game, and he's given England food for thought going into the Six Nations. I think. Munster had the game like fucking. You can't not win that. You can't not win a game like that against 14 men. You just can't. It's just not good enough. And regardless of losing a hurling was probably a big blow for him as well, because he took that he carries a lot of power that they were lacking in the second half. And O'Mahony went off then, and the whole thing. It actually turned out similar to the Exeter game. They fucking fell away and clawed a defeat from the jaws of victory, basically. But they're going to have to be a lot better at Franklin's Gardens in the last 16 game, or they're going to get fucking hammered. Because Northampton didn't need to play particularly well. They played quite well, but they didn't. They can play better than that as well. Munster will have to be a lot better, and they didn't manage the game at all. I don't think Jack Crowley done his chances great, to be honest with you. With his performance in the second half, they were grand up to half time, but the second half performance was dreadful.
Sorry, Mike. I'll just come in there, and Mark, I'll just get your opinion on this as a former out half yourself. Do you feel the game management issue there is it's all around Jack Crowley? He's still obviously developing. He's a fantastic young player. He's got an awful lot of tools, but it's that basically game management thing that basically effectively comes really with kind of game time. You know, getting in those positions, learning it. Is that where this is just going to be kind of like a growing pain for Jack Crowley and Munster by extension? Or do you think this can be solved different ways, we'll say, on the training paddock?
It's an interesting question. Look, no, ultimately your key decision makers, your halfbacks, have to, if you want to be successful, they have to understand and know how to manage a game and know how to manage and navigate their way through different difficult situations, different weather conditions, different scenarios on pitch. It's something that probably the best guys have it inherently within them. And yes, while they do develop and do progress as they gain experience, they always have it in them. Johnny Sexton would be a great example. Johnny was always able to manage a game, always knew how to manage a game, pick the right decisions. And that just got better and better as he got older. But he always had it in him. He inherently had it. He had it within him. Crowley is a magnificent footballer. There's no doubt about it. He's a fantastic rugby player. Does he have the ability to manage games at a top level so that Munster and Ireland can be successful? I'm not convinced right now. I think Sam Prendergast in Leicester is a guy who does. I think he understands how to manage a game of rugby. Whether he'll get the opportunities to do it at Leinster or not, given that there's himself, Kieran Frawley, who's also another magnificent rugby player, by the way, who with experience will learn how to manage games, I think, as well. And then you've obviously got Ross and Hayburn. So whether Sam will get the exposure there that he needs, look, I don't know. Jack will get it at Munster and will get that experience down there. Will he develop into a top class out half? He certainly has all the tools. He's all the skills right now. But look, if you want a team to be successful at that level, you've got to be able to manage a game in different ways and navigate your way through those different and difficult scenarios and situations. I'm not convinced that Casey and Crowley have that, but look, maybe over time, and hopefully from a Munster point of view, over time, I'll be proved wrong, and the experience will help them develop into those top class operators. I think Casey's been lucky insofar as that he's had, certainly with Ireland, he's had Sexton outside him. A lot of for a good bit of the rugby he's played. But look, time will tell. As I say, I think Prendergast at Leinster, I think Sam is a fantastic rugby player, and I think he has within him that understanding of how to manage rugby matches. He needs some more exposure to top level stuff to develop that further. But yeah, sure. It is a difficult one. It's look, and this is where I worry for Ireland, Six Nations wise, is how are we going to manage games and how are we going to navigate our way around the pitch without Johnny there. I don't think we've done it before in big games, in a consecutive series of big games without him. But look, time will tell.
Peter Burke, do you want to come in on the Munster game? Your thoughts?
I think, to be honest with you, before a ball was kicked, I thought Munster had this in the bag. I think we all did, going on the comments last week. Again, excuse me. Again, I'm referencing what Reggie Corrigan said last week. He said, I can't see Munster losing this. And he'd be shocked if Munster lose in Thomond Park. He said English teams don't like going to Thomond. Irish teams don't like going to Thomond. And it kind of, it backfired. And I sent him a message and I was slagging him about it. But sure, look, there you go. I thought, Mike, I thought, to disagree with you when you were saying about the man of the match, I thought Courtney Laws was deservedly man of the match. And he caused mayhem for Munster at the Ruck and the Mauls.
Did you?
And I think, like, Northampton, like, a lot of us didn't think that Northampton were going to send over a lot of their first starters, and it just turns out that they did. And like, it's one of those things in rugby, in sport in general. It looked like Northampton wanted it more than Munster did. Munster normally have a fight about them, and that they snatch a game at, in the last quarter, the last 10. But Northampton did a Munster on it, if you get me. And they won it by 3 points. And fair play to them. I mean, I don't think Munster did a lot wrong, really. They didn't do a lot wrong, but they were just, you can cliche all over the fucking shop here. They were beaten by a better team, blah, blah, blah. But it was a good win for Northampton. And Munster, as Mark said, they'd be fucking kicking themselves. Munster should have won that game. They should have won that game. Should have, would have, could have, blah, 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 and so on. It was a good game to watch, but, Munster, like all the provinces, like every fucking team in their career, they came up short. But look, it makes for an interesting next round after the Six Nations.
Peter, just to pick up on a point you were saying there, that Northampton came over with their first liners, and it's something that, as you said, Reggie kind of brought up last week when we discussed Stade Francais sending over the Espoir to play Leinster, and of course they got their backsides handed to them. Does it come down to the fact, perhaps, maybe that the likes of Northampton, they've got a heritage in Europe, and this is what Reggie kind of mentioned about Toulouse. Toulouse have a heritage in Europe. Europe means something to Toulouse. Is it perhaps the same thing that Northampton looked at themselves, looked at the crest, whatever the hell the case would be, the heritage, and say, we've won this competition. We go back a long way, back to 2006 when they played and bet Munster in that particular European Champions Cup as it was then. Is it perhaps is it something that we can look out for, that certain clubs we know will take this seriously, they'll send over the big guns and they'll mean business, while others will say, domestic competition comes first?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at it, Pete, like Northampton I think they're number one in the Premiership at the moment, and I think they're playing the Falcons on Saturday to retain that spot. So there is an absolute pride in Northampton and Toulouse, and Raj brought it into La Rochelle. And there are, as was discussed last week, mercenary clubs. I put Saracens as a mercenary club. But yes, I think the pride in the history of it, and where we've been, where we've come from, what we've done in this competition before, we don't want to limp out of it. We don't want to, lose a game. We want to put up a fucking fighting chance, as every team should do. And I think very much so, Pete. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, absolutely. It is a pride in the jersey, a pride in the crest. For some teams, not all teams, some teams. Northampton is certainly one of them. Yeah, along with Toulouse and La Rochelle because of Raj, and there are a few others as well. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Now that's that. I suppose that just kind of wraps up our chat in relation to last week's game. So just coming back to yourself, Mark. I said at the top of our broadcast that we're going to go talk a little bit about your own, I suppose, playing career all the way up. you started off with Boyne with myself, and I stayed where I was, and you went on to bigger and better things, clearly. At the time, you would have been one of the first players to have come through the club system, I suppose, as opposed to what we're used to with the private schools, your St. Michael's, your Blackrocks, your Clongowes, and so on. Do you feel now as a coach, do you feel that there's still a great, it's been said before that there's a huge amount of untapped potential in the club game. And I think, there's probably an awful lot more coaching being done by Leinster outside, the schools. The school system is taking care of itself. I think that's a given. But as regards reaching into the clubs and trying to get kids together and, improve, bring everything up. Do you feel that has significantly kind of changed, come on an awful lot since your time coming up through the system?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think that Leinster and the Leinster branch have put in a monumental effort over the last probably, let's say 20, 25 years to spread their, to spread their coaching network out across the province, because they understand, they realize that there is a huge amount of potential out there. Kids playing in clubs who are probably playing loads of other sports, and that multi-discipline kind of that you learn playing different sports can be brilliant when you potentially specialize into one. And I think they've understood that, and they've grown their own, I suppose, organization to make sure that they tap into that as much as they possibly can. And I think from what I've seen and from what I understand of the work that they do, they're doing a fantastic job. You mentioned the schools. Look, the schools look after themselves. They are effectively professional rugby organizations. The St. Michael's of this world, the Blackrocks, the Clongowes, and that's just in Dublin, because there are other clubs further afield in Limerick and Cork who are similar, and up north, of course, as well. And they're effectively rugby academies with professional coaching staffs, nutritionists, dietitians, S&C coaches to beat the band, not just for the top team, but for all the teams down. So there's going to continue to be that conveyor belt of players, coming through that school system, especially in Leinster. So I think the work that they're doing on the ground in the clubs across the province is magnificent. It's really, really good, and it's bearing fruit that they've got so many players. If you look across, dare I say, the other provinces, there's quite a number of Leinster players in inverted commas who are who are playing in the other provinces. Nick Timoney, you mentioned Nick Timoney is a product of. I know he's not a club player. I know he comes from Blackrock College and all that, but just the work that's been done across the province is fantastic, and harnessing the potential at age grade levels and giving players pathways to see where they might go and how they can navigate their own rugby career to potentially look at an elite level. I think they've done a brilliant job, and I think it's been bearing fruit now for the last probably 10, 12 years, and long may that last.
Indeed. And just the fact that you're coaching St. Mary's, have you seen, we've had Dylan Donlan on the show there a number of weeks ago, and he was basically just sharing with us his experience, having initially missed out with Leinster, and then he got the call earlier on in the season when, the cupboard was bare for Leo, and he answered the call and came in. We just spoke about, I suppose, briefly around, where the AIL is in relation to, providing, I suppose, backup to Leinster or any of the other provinces, because I myself am paying a little bit more attention to it. It's certainly a product that's undersold, and it's very competitive. Are you seeing, within your own remit as St. Mary's coach, are you seeing a lot of, we'll say, club players coming up to yourselves? Are they literally all the kind of, I suppose, not to use the word cast off, but are they basically all, are most of your playing staff kind of ex-schools players, or are there ex guys from down the country, whatever, that happen to pitch up? They're very good, but they're ultimately club players. Are they coming through to at that level, even with AIL, or is it, what's the what kind of flavor do you have in the playing staff?
Yeah. So look, I suppose to your point, I mean, look, the All Ireland League, in my view, is undersold and undervalued by the professional game, and in my view, by the IRFU to a degree. It's certainly it appears to be, from what I've experienced over the last 12 or so years being back in Ireland and coaching, it's a poor relation of the professional game, and what these guys maybe don't understand is that it is so competitive, and at the top end of the All Ireland League, you've got close to guys who are training like professionals and who are playing matches at a close to pro standard. It really is. Look, I suppose from a St Mary's College point of view, we're Division 1B, but we have guys who could slot into any Division 1A club, no problem whatsoever. We're I suppose a motley crew to a degree of Dublin guys not from Dublin, guys from the country, guys coming from schools, guys coming from clubs, guys who played their mini rugby in the club, to guys who played mini rugby elsewhere, and I think that's the beauty of club rugby in the country is that a lot of clubs are like that. And while you might have a nub of guys who are club grown, for want of a better phrase, you also have guys coming from different parts of the country and maybe different parts of the world, and I think that's brilliant in the club game in this country. And it is massively competitive. Even Division 1B, where we are at the minute, hugely competitive every single week. It's a tough league. Division 1A equally, as I said before. Like, I mean, you're talking about semi-pro level there. I mean, you've got guys who are training, as much as the pro guys are training. So it's I think it's a fantastic league. I think it's brilliant. I know there's been calls in the past for it to go provincial or regional. I am dead against that. I think the All Ireland flavour of it, nature of it, needs to be kept, especially at the top end, top 2-3 divisions, without a shadow of a doubt. I think it's really important to continue some players' developments, and equally for guys who are finished playing pro to come back down and play and pass on their knowledge to some of the younger guys. I think it's hugely important and hugely beneficial and of massive value.
I actually agree with what you've just said there, Mark. My old club are doing particularly well, better now than they probably have in their history. Nina Ormond.
Yeah, very good.
They're doing. I mean, I think they're top. They're top of what I don't know what division are they?
Are they 2B? I'm not sure.
Whatever division they're in, they're doing better. I mean, they beat Greystones at the weekend. I know that, and they're doing particularly well now. And they have not, they wouldn't have in their history. I mean, they got to the Munster Cup final last season, and I think keeping the league as an All Ireland league has benefited them certainly.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't know. I mean, I wouldn't know now. I haven't been to a game in Ireland for a long time. And
that's because you're barred, Mike.
I know. Don't even let me in.
You were thrown out of Ireland for playing darts. Anyway, folks, just a couple of comments coming in, going back to the games we discussed. Is the Leinster slow ramp up deliberate to peak post Six Nations at the quarter semi-final stage of both league and cup? I don't know. Maybe. Munster team was doing great work first half, but second half they fuck up themselves. They have doing all again. In April, they away this time. Munster, they will stand up and fight next time. Never write off Munster rugby. Okay, and deliberate or not, great teams have a tendency to naturally progress and time their peak at the right time of a season. Leadership and experience within a team creates that unconsciously. They draw on emotions and extra energy only when needed. Then it actually has an effect. Brilliant. And last one, what advice would you give an ambitious youth playing with his or her club to maybe give them a chance against top school players? I don't know. Is that directed at Mark?
I think that's a question you might be able to the best place to answer that one.
Sure. That's a good question. Look,
Great question.
suppose-
by the way.
yeah, ultimately, look, talent is obviously important, but the most important thing is how hard you work and how much you want it and what you're prepared to do. People talk about, having a will to win. I talk to my players, well, that any old gobshite can have a will to win. You got to have the will to prepare to win. So to any ambitious young player, work your socks off. Don't take no for an answer. Keep working hard. Work on your strengths as much as you work on your weaknesses. What's your USP? What are you really good at? What are you better than? The guy you're keeping off the team or whatever it might be. And when you get to training, when you get to team training, this is something I've always remembered. The New Zealand All Blacks trained. Peter, I don't know if you remember this, back in Drogheda RFC as it was, now going back in, I think it was 1989, shortly before they played Ireland and that famous Willie Anderson approaching the Hecka time. And I remember getting the day off school to go down and watch them train. And there was a ton of kids down watching them train. And I remember getting Sean Fitzpatrick's autograph and Grant Fox and all these All Black legends. And somebody piped up and asked Sean Fitzpatrick, what advice would you give the kids who were dragging out of him and all that? And he said, and I remember it, I've always remembered it, and I always kept it in my head when I was playing training, is always train like your second choice. And I always thought that was a really cool bit of advice. So when you go out to train, whether you're the incumbent or not, whether you played last weekend or not, you train as if you're the second choice. And that's always stuck with me. And yeah, so to an ambitious youth player, work your socks off and keep going, and keep going and keep going. Work harder than the next guy.
That's just it. It's all what it boils down to. Just a couple of points before I suppose we'll kind of wrap up, and I just wanted to bring kind of this point with you, Mark, because I know not an awful lot of people may or may not know that, because let's face it, a lot of people don't necessarily spend time looking up Wikipedia, but you've been capped for Ireland at sevens.
Yes, I have. Yeah,
you have.
Enough. I have.
And yeah. I suppose look, we were all aware that Dupont has basically thrown his lot in with France for the upcoming Olympics. I suppose it's just really what I'm trying to drive at. Apart from the fact that you have to be a tough motherfucker and seriously fit, what are the other aspects that basically would make some guy who's those two characteristics? What stands out as a sevens player? I say, right, I need that guy there because.
Well, first of all, sevens when I played it 24 years ago is different to what it was now, and I'm neither of those things that you suggested a sevens player needs to be. But anyway, I think, oh God, you need outrageous speed endurance. You need to be able to run. You need to be able to sprint 60, 70, 80, 90 meters, turn around and do it again, and do it constantly for 14 minutes. It's a horrific game. You need to have incredible tackle technique. You can't miss tackles. You miss tackles, it's a try. So if you're missing tackles, you're off the team effectively. So really good tackle technique, incredible speed endurance. You need to have the ability to be able to jackal, so flexibility, strength in those difficult contact collision situations, and generally just a really high level of ball skills. It's a different game to 15s, and it's actually quite difficult to transition. And now look, this guy Dupont is different gravy. The guy plays rugby like he's from another planet, for God's sake. If anybody can do it, no, look, he certainly can, and I fully expect he will be a massive success at doing it, because he's all those things in terms of that skill set that I've been talking about. And
Mark, could I ask you a question about sevens? Yep. Is there any need for a scrum in sevens rugby?
It's a good question. There probably isn't. Played as a free kick. I mean,
there you go.
Yeah, played as a free kick.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, look, fucking field is big enough as it is when you've got 7. Why bring 3 of them, 6 of them over here, and make the pitch even fucking bigger again? Yeah, look, I think that's a fair shout. Now, look, the 7. I mean, I'd argue that 15s needs to have a think about what they're doing with the scrum rather than 7s. But listen, there we go. Yeah,
don't start me on that. Don't start me on that. Jesus Christ.
And just on that point, then, Mark, you're saying about some of them find it so difficult transition. We've got Hugo Keenan, who's playing for Leinster and Ireland is basically effectively de facto best world fullback in the world. And we saw Andrew Smith score a fantastic finish. Should have been a try, call a spade for Connacht last week. How come is it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but how come is it that you see these guys who are ex-Sevens players and are current Sevens players, they seem to be playing, it seems to be a bit of a kind of a wow put about them, or when you hear commentators describing these guys, you know, in the game today, in the last couple of years, and you haven't heard anything about it. Like, you never heard of a Sevens guy playing 15s 4 and 5 and 6 years ago. They were basically kind of like the unwanted child. They were out training on their own. They're doing their thing because they're Sevens players. Was all. Do you feel that there's something? Has the gap closed perhaps a little bit, or is it just? What do you think is why is it coming back into it?
Look, I think from an Irish point of view, let's say Ireland are now, like the RFU are now obviously putting money into their Sevens program, and they're using their Sevens program as an opportunity to give some of the, you know, young guys with potential exposure to playing top level elite sports, shall we say, because the games are quite different. And if they're good at Sevens, then there's an opportunity that they may be able to come and play 15s and be successful at that too. Now the difference is in my view is the space. It's a completely different. It's a different game because space is completely at a premium on when there's 15 guys or 30 guys on the pitch than when there is only 14. It's totally different. And the guys who understand space and can see it and are able to adapt to that are the guys who can make that transition. There's other guys who are incredible athletes who get away with not understanding space quite the same way, and you can get away with that at Sevens a little bit more. You can't get away with it at 15s at a top level. So look, from an Irish point of view, the RFU are pumping. They've given a little bit of money into that Sevens program to give players with that potential, because they're scouring the country for good GAA players, good athletes, good whatever, you know, soccer players, whatever it might be, guys who are athletes who could fit into a Sevens program and play well, and potentially then fit into a 15s program. So there's a method to their, you know, Nucifor's madness, so to speak. And certainly like guys like Hugo Keenan would be a really good example of somebody who has, I suppose, gained huge value from being a part of a Sevens program and then shifted into a 15s program. But I would argue that he always had the 15s capability. The Sevens gave him the exposure and gave him some different skills that he can bring into the 15s game. Okay,
very, very interesting point. Just going to ask, I think I'll finish up with this final question. I know we're well over time.
Yep.
You played as an out half. I know you started off as scrum half with me. You transitioned to out half. You played inside centre and you played fullback. Given this, just bear with me a second and you get me head around my own question. Is there a position today, based on obviously your substantial playing career, is there a position today, if you were a young guy, would you play a different position? Would you like to play a different position, or would you say, do you know what, 20-year-old Mark McHugh, I'll stick with halfback, first centre, maybe fullback?
Gosh, that's an interesting one. If I had to do it all again, would I do it the same? I always had a soft spot for playing like number 7 or something like that. I just think that is just a brilliant, like, if you enjoy I suppose the collision nature of the sport, then number 7 is a place that you can enjoy that, but also then you'd like to think you're a link player and you can get involved in maybe some more of the open field stuff. So if you're saying I can't play 10, 12 or 15 or any of that kind of stuff, and if I had to pick another position, I think number 7 would have been a position that I would have always been interested in playing. I'd never been good enough, clearly. I wasn't a good enough tackler, B, a good enough jackler, or C, pretty enough to play number 7. So there we go.
Ah, Mark, you're selling yourself short. I'm sure you'd be. I'm sure your mother would tell you were.
I was only selling myself short before Peter did, but he was about to, I'm sure.
Go on, Ella.
Brilliant stuff. Listen, look, I think there's a whole lot else we can kind of go on with this. So look, I think we'll just wrap it up for this evening. We've done a fantastic show. just like to say thanks very much, Mark, for coming on. It's been a pleasure having you. Your insight has been top notch. I suppose I'll just take the opportunity on behalf of us all to wish you the best of luck with St. Mary's for the rest of the season. Hopefully there might be a bit of silverware somewhere down the road coming your way. And with that, I suppose I'll just say good night to Peter, good night to Mike, and folks, we'll see you sometime next week for more of the same. All right?
Good
Take
luck.
care and God bless.
Take
Thanks
care
again, Mark. Cheers.
Cheers.